Hello, welcome pen friends. I'm back with another ink profile. It has been a very long time, but I wanted to bring you a profile of TWSBI Blue Black. It's a beautiful ink and I've really been enjoying it, so I wanted to bring it to you. Now, let's first look at the packaging. It comes in this box, which is real nice, and it has a lot of protective foam in it, bottom and top, and has a little place for the ink. I guess you call it an ink miser. This little gizmo helps you fill even once the bottle is low. So you can tilt the bottle and get the ink into this little thing. So that fits in there in the bottle. And then it has the top foam too. So it's very well protected. But we're going to put that away because we're not going to need that. All right. And then what we have is just a beautiful bottle, in my opinion. It's a frosted glass bottle. And try to hold it up there. It's got a beautiful red cap with the TWSBI logo on it. Comes on and ooh, it's pretty. It's really pretty. Looks a little brighter right there maybe than it does coming out of the nib, but we're going to look at that. Oops, I'm making splashes. Okay, so let's take a look at the pens that I used and also just a preliminary look at the first tests. So first I'm going to show you this. This is what I like to do when they first come in, is make an ink tile. And I could see right away that it had quite a bit of water resistance. So I was really excited about that because Blue Black is good for note taking. I love it for that. And I like it in my bullet journal. And so knowing that it wouldn't just completely disappear if I spilled my coffee on it or, you know, got the typical things to happen, that made me really happy. So then I did a little splatter play here on Tomoe River 52 GSM, and it definitely shows the range of the ink, how it can be pretty dusty and then it goes all the way to the dark. You know, it's quite nice. And then next I decided I wanted to really see how it did with a full bath test. So if you have followed me very long, you know that I learned from Brian Friedlander to completely submerge my tests, and I do that for about 15 minutes. I put a timer on the stove actually, and then I take it out and let it dry, and you can see this definitely has a lot of water resistance. You know, I've looked at a lot of these and that's pretty darn good. Obviously, you'll see in the water, I mean in some of the notes, let's see, I got some right here I can just put, you know, it loses a little bit of its vibrancy, but still, that's a lot of water resistance. So next we'll look at the pens. Okay, I did a little bit different this time. And I have this ink in 4 pens. One is the TWSBI Go with a broad nib, and that's the clear one. And then the next one for the stub nib is the Genhao X750 with a Goulet 1.5 stub. And then this is the one I'm using most because I'm testing this out in my bullet journal and other places. This is the TWSBI Go with a medium nib because I really wanted to see how the medium nib did. That's my preferred nib for bullet journaling and note taking. And so that's going well. And then I thought, well, rather than put it in another of the same type of pen, I would get out a Pilot Metropolitan because the fine nib on these is really fine. It's more like what I would consider an extra fine because it's the Japanese nib. So that did end up helping. So I have a lot of samples to show you, going all the way back to my first ink journal where I got a chance to kind of hop in there and compare it with another ink. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, now this is a really messy one to start with, and it was lucky there was even a page partially free to do this, but here's the TWSBI Blue Black, and this is in the Rhodia Gold book with the cream paper, but still, it was the one place where I could still find my old Fountain Pen Revolution Blue Black notes from way back. So this is the TWSBI Blue Black, and this is the Fountain Pen Revolution. So I've got a lot of notes on here, but I also was able to go ahead and compare the chromatography. So here's the TWSBI chromatography. You can see that it stayed there, but it was a lot lighter than the Fountain Pen Revolution. So that surprised me how that really stayed solid on that. And when I started comparing how much I paid, well, I ran into a little trouble because I bought it on sale, so I ended up paying 11 cents a mil for mine, a 60 mil bottle for $6 and something. So it was really hard to compare because now it's $8.50 for 30 mils, the fountain pen revolution. So that's just not really here nor there, but I thought some of you might enjoy seeing the difference. They're actually quite similar, and I've got another comparison coming, but so it was about 25 cents a mil for the amount I paid for the TWSBI. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I really actually think that when I get a bargain on ink, it actually affects how much I like the ink. And I know that sounds weird, but you might as well know that that's one of my biases. The better I do price-wise, the more I like the ink. And then there's other reasons, of course. But it does sway my opinion, so you might want to know that. So here it was in the broad nib, the TWSBI Blue Black, in the TWSBI Go with the broad nib. And then it gets really vibrant, really dark in the 1.5 Goulet nib, and then of course it lightens up considerably in the medium, but it's really a happy medium. I think I've enjoyed that a lot on other papers too, so that's good. And then in the fine, the Pilot Metropolitan, for me it's too fine, but a lot of my pen friends love those fine and extra fine. To me it felt just a little bit dry coming out of that nib. That's just personal. And so I just wanted to show you this one first. I've got quite a few more, but this goes all the way back to when I first started reviewing inks. So I stopped using that kind of paper. But I'm also going to pop into my bullet journal because in there I found a free page too to play around with. And it is right here. So this is the TWSBI Blue Black. And the whole reason I was doing this was to see whether either one of these would bleed through. Let's see. And I put the fountain pen revolution in another pen. Hold on, let me grab that. Wow, I can tell it's been a while since I did an ink review. It was sitting right here beside me. So whereas this TWSBI Blue Black, the one I'm reviewing today, was in the TWSBI Go medium, I did grab my Serendipity and put a Goulet medium nib in it. And that's what I used for this sample. Like I said, I just wanted to know, can I write with either one of these or both without it bleeding through or feathering, and in a medium nib? That was strictly all I wanted to know. And sure enough, it was great. No bleed through on either one. Let's see, if we go back over here, we got, you know, shadowing, but no bleed through. So that was fantastic. And you can tell, at least I can, that the fountain pen revolution is a little bit brighter blue. Just a little bit though, they're very close. And the TWSBI Blue Black is just slightly darker, and we're gonna see that on the Rhodia. Some of the better samples are up ahead, but I thought if it has value for me, knowing that it does well on the Leuchtturm, then it'll have value for someone else to know that too. The flow. I said the flow seemed about equal. I just did this morning, and I really felt like it did feel similar. Was happy with both of them. I had already written quite a bit with the Serendipity so that it wasn't a brand new saturated, and yet it wasn't anywhere near running out of ink. Okay, so next, let's look at well, we're not going to be able to compare them. This is just going to be the TWSBI Blue Black, but that's okay because that's what I'm trying to focus on here. But for some reason, I'm finding a lot of value in comparing those two inks, so that's kind of what happened. But here's the in the TWSBI Go with the broad nib, nice and bold and pretty. And this is Rhodia 80-gram graph paper. And then in the stub nib, the Goulet 1.5, that really, really darkens and makes it vibrant. I think for letter writing, that would be fantastic. And then in the medium, TWSBI Go, that was the sapphire one, this one here. That's the one I'm really tested the most because that's what I was most interested in. It looked good. It held up well, I thought. And then in the Pilot Metropolitan, it didn't feel extra dry on this paper. I wonder why in the Leuchtturm it kind of did. Maybe the Leuchtturm's just a little more of a absorbent paper, and this is more coated, so that probably would account for that. But anyway, it still looks nice, I think. Okay, so then next I have a couple more. This seems to be where I get caught up. This was my first chromatography that I did, and I wasn't happy with it. I thought maybe something had gone wrong there, so I redid it. But it just didn't show the amount of water resistance I was seeing here and other places. So yeah, I did redo that. But this is Tomoe River 68 GSM paper in a Lockbee A5. And it was just really nice. I didn't have all the other pens inked up at the time. Isn't that something? Okay, but let's look on the back. I didn't see any bleed through at all. That's something else. I don't know where that's coming from, because that's not bleed through. That's just me being messy, I think. But I just wanted to show you this. There's not a whole lot of shading. There's a little bit, but I wouldn't peg this as a shading ink at all. It wouldn't be the reason I would want to get it. So, and by the way, one of the things I did want to mention was that my whole point with doing ink reviews for you is so that you'll know whether you want to buy a sample. And I don't recommend going about buying bottles without buying samples. I never recommend that. So here are two cheaper papers. One that I used all of the nibs, because I know I get a lot of requests for cheap copy paper, but well, let's put that aside just for a second. This is the CVS Caliber paper, and I just used it in that medium TWSBI Go. It did have a lot of water resistance there. You can still see everything I was trying to do, and I did think it lightened up quite a bit. It definitely, compared to Rhodia, let's grab the Rhodia. It definitely lightens up on Tomoe River paper just by a tad, a shade or two. But this is CVS Caliber paper, and that's what it does. It's inexpensive paper, but it's excellent because even the painted on didn't bleed through. And it's got plenty of ghosting and shadowing like Tomoe River paper, but it's really hardy paper. So I love it for note-taking and for just everyday writing where I'm not feeling like I'm burning through Tomoe River paper and spending so much extra money. Okay, last but not least, as far as paper samples, is the Georgia Pacific 20-pound copy paper. We have it in the broad nib, the 1.5 Goulet nib, the medium nib, and then of course I did today have that that Serendipity filled up with the fountain pen revolution, so I've got a big square around it, because this is not the TWSBI Blue Black, this is the fountain pen revolution. And I felt like, wow, look at that. That's the TWSBI Blue Black in the medium nib, and this is the fountain pen revolution, and they look a lot alike to me. I mean, I'm not, let me hold that up so you can see it. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference at all, whereas you would think so, because everywhere else where we compare them, this one looks brighter, but coming out of that nib, it kind of evened things out, at least, or maybe it's an optical thing. And there it is, the TWSBI Blue Black in the Pilot Metropolitan. It still looks really nice, and it's very readable. It's just real thin. Let's look on the back of that. Really interesting how this did. It didn't actually bleed through, which surprised me. I expected it to. But it's not really great either. Like, you can see it's seepage. You can see it tried, especially on the ends and where there are dots or anything like that. But that's pretty impressive, really. It's a lot of ghosting, but I would have expected it to just be a bleed monster, and it isn't. Neither one of them is. I mean, they acted almost exactly identical in behavior. I didn't see feathering down in the medium and fine nib, but I did see quite a bit of feathering up here. It's just that it isn't like chicken feathers. It isn't so bad. I think you could actually get away with this if you wanted to. I really think, and if I'm not mistaken, but you'll have to watch my review, because I have a full review out on Fountain Pen Revolution Blue Black. And seems like I remember being really happy, but I don't use copy paper, except for these reviews so that it helps anyone who has to use it. I don't use copy paper. So next, let's do some overall blue-black ink comparisons. There, okay, so I've kind of set it up like a old-fashioned ink panel like I used to. I've gotten so spoiled by inkswatch.com that I don't do this as often anymore. I go right to the website and there's so many of them loaded, but in the middle, and I will link you to inkswatch.com. Matt has done such a fabulous job that we can now compare so many inks at our fingertips, at our desktop or on our cell phones. So it's just really, really nice. But in the middle is our ink of the day, TWSBI Blue Black. And you can see it has quite a bit of water resistance. And then it's right next to the one that I seem to be obsessed with comparing it to, the Fountain Pen Revolution Blue Black. Even though the reason for that is because that is the ink that I do have in bottle form in-house. And so that's the one I'm using up. And the only reason I got a bottle of the TWSBI ink like this was because of channel ad money and wanting to really test it, and I didn't want to pay for shipping for a sample or 2 samples, and I just decided to get the bottle anyway, and it was it's going to end up benefiting more people, I think, this way. So these two I went ahead and did the test. So this is TWSBI Blue Black here. And then this is the Fountain Pen Revolution test. It's the same exact way that I tested them. And the TWSBI, sure enough, the TWSBI ink seems to maintain better, it has more water resistance. And it surprised the heck out of me. It really did. I don't know why, but I just didn't expect it to be, but it stayed true to the way the tile behaved too. See how that, this one here, you can definitely see the water resistance in this tile. But not quite like this, and it played true with these tests too. The total submersion that Brian taught me about years ago. So the other one that I thought was really interesting was how Lamy Crystal Benatite, I liked how that compared with TWSBI Blue Black too. It's a little brighter. I don't like my blue blacks to be black, but I also don't like them to be too blue. But they're very, very tricky because coming out of the nib, they can look really nice and dark, even though their tile may look, you know, like the Diamine Blue Black. I distinctly remember loving that during my month of blue inks. And so it had to have been dark enough for me coming out of a nib. But it doesn't have the water resistance, though, that these 4 have. The TWSBI Today's ink and I guess it's getting toward where I really like a little bit of water resistance in a blue black, in a gray, and in a black. You know, the ones that I'm likely to use for note-taking and long-term notebooks that I think I want to have around forever, not, you know, lose the writing. So let's see, I have a little stack here of additional ones too. Okay, so this is Tasha Ayaguro Blue Black. Has no water resistance, but it's a very pretty ink. And then this is Birmingham Philander Cenox Old Glory Blue, which is one I really love, but it's quite a bit bluer. And that does come through in a nib. Diamine Twilight, same thing with that. It's nice. It's a very pretty color though. I like that color, but again, not much water resistance there, if any. And here's a Kyoto Tag ink. I don't know how that got in there. That's way brighter, no matter how you look at it. And then, oh, this was a Straits Pen Honest Ink one that I pulled out because I kind of forgot about those inks, and we're going to have more channel money soon, and I was actually remembering how much I loved this one, along with the Bougainvillea Purple. That's a really pretty blue. It's a blue black, really. I mean, in my mind. Some of these, it's a fine line whether they're really blue black. And here's one, Diamine. Yeah, oh, that's the same. That's Diamine Blue Black. Never mind. Okay, and here's Nemesine. I don't think you can get this anymore, although that could change through Birmingham. We'll have to wait and see. Pilates Blue Black. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but okay, so I just thought that would help as far as comparisons. Now, as far as how I feel about this ink, I just love it. In fact, I made a list of things I love about it. I love the water resistance. I admit I love the packaging. I love this bottle, and I think this little gizmo will come in handy for some people. For me, I always, excuse me, fill out of a sample vial or my little ink miser that sits up on its own that's very similar to this, actually. So I'm not worried about that, but I do think it's a nice bonus. And I thought the price was just fine. It all came out really good per mil. Let's see, I had that written down in the old notebook. I've already kind of forgotten, but it's here. I have lost my page. That's terrible. Hold on. Okay, well, that was ridiculous. Okay, so even with a little bit of extra I paid ordering from Dromgoole's, it was 25 cents a mil. But I did find it on TWSBI.com. The whole 70 mil bottle was $15.99, which would make it about 23 cents. So I thought it was very, very reasonable price-wise. And that's a big plus. And then the fact that I love the shade of the ink and I love how it looks coming out of the nib. I'm perfectly happy with it, and I'm thrilled that it's going to write in a medium nib on Leuchtturm with no problem. So that really added to it. Now, there was just one thing that I don't like about it, which is just stupid and picky, but I would like it if they would put it in a smaller bottle too, so that would be an option. This is one of theirs from their 1791 series. And it's an 18 mil bottle, and that'd be the one thing they could do that I would like better, because I like to try and use so many different inks that these bigger bottles, you know, they're just a little bit more challenging. That's all to use up, and so even when it doesn't come down to price, wouldn't that be nice to have the smaller? Then I could probably have one of each, because I noticed that they have 5 in their standard line. This is part of the standard line. They have the blue black, the sapphire blue, black, red, and midnight blue. That's 5 now. And they really just got into inks starting in 2019. So I would expect more things to happen. And I was going to tell you, okay, so you can still get the TWSBI sets like this, the smaller ones in the box. They're still available. But if you just want one color, like what happened to me is I went right through my purple, then they sell it just in a little box with the little bottle in it. And I know I'm getting off track here. But I think hopefully there's enough information in this video for you to know whether you want to buy a sample of this and try this ink. I've been very happy with it. And I'm excited about it. So tell me what you think in the comments, and I'd also like to hear if you have a favorite blue black. Many of you helped me find these to test out back when I was trying to find one, and for the longest time the Fountain Pen Revolution Blue Black has been the main one, and now it's got a partner here. So this is the bottle of the blue the Revolution, and this is the TWSBI. So I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about this or any other blue black ink, and my apologies for being so rusty on doing ink profiles, but I did look around and there wasn't much out there. I almost talked myself out of it until I realized there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to give people for them to know whether they would want a sample of this yet. I mean, there will be probably as time goes on, but I thought that would be a good thing I could try to work on for you. And in the meantime too, I'm going to try to get the other samples of the other inks, because I think those will be really worthy of trying out. I've been super happy with the ones in the 6 series. I love how they flow and behave and wash out so easily. It's just been really, really nice. So that's it. And thank you so much for joining me here. Bye for now.